Hey guys, in this video we're going to be looking at 3 sentence correction questions. Now we have given you the questions in such a fashion that there are common underlying concepts across these questions. So let's look at what those common underlying concepts are and then we can look at the questions themselves. Alright, there are 2 concepts that you need to know in order to be able to answer these questions effectively. Number 1, you need to know about modifiers. What's a modifier? Any noun or a phrase that adds a description for a particular word in the sentence would be a modifier in the sentence. Okay? What is the rule that I need to know? There are a few rules that govern the usage of modifiers. Let's look at the fundamental rule that you need to know for this particular set of questions. You need to know the placement rule. What's the placement rule? Any modifier phrase. So if you have a collection of words that are adding a description, that modifier phrase has to be right next to the word that it's trying to describe. So it has to be physically placed next to the word in the sentence. Let's look at the example. The magazine had some interesting pictures of celebrity weddings that I found in the doctor's waiting room. That I found in the doctor's waiting room is a modifier that's adding a description for something in the sentence. What did you find in the doctor's waiting room? What are we describing? We are trying to describe the magazine. If someone said the sentence to me when we were speaking, I would be perfectly fine with it because I understand that it's the magazine that was found in the doctor's waiting room. But wait a minute. Is that what the sentence is actually saying? What is the word that is next to the modifier? The word next to the modifier is weddings. If you follow the standards of good written English, the meaning of this sentence is that the weddings were found in the doctor's waiting room, and that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's not the weddings, it's the magazine that was found in the doctor's waiting room. So this sentence is an incorrect sentence. Why? The modifier is not next to the word that it's trying to describe. So, what would be a correct version? The correct version would be if you inserted the modifier here. That would be a correct construction. The magazine that I found in the doctor's waiting room had some interesting pictures of celebrity weddings. A lot of times when we speak, we understand the meaning that is being conveyed. So we think, oh, that's perfectly fine. But it's not about whether you understand. It's about whether any layman who reads the sentence would be able to understand it. Whether there is any room at all for ambiguity in the sentence. If you place the modifiers correctly, there will be no room for ambiguity. Another rule that you need to learn, noun-verb agreement. What do we mean by noun-verb agreement? There's going to be a verb in the sentence. That verb is going to be pointing at a particular noun. That noun and the verb that is referencing that noun must both be singular or both be plural. The noun and the verb must agree in terms of number. Both should be singular, both should be plural. If one is singular and the other is plural, then you're looking at an incorrect sentence. Let's look at an example. An interesting collage of pictures from recent celebrity weddings were the centerfold of the magazine. Now, what is the verb in the sentence? Where? What is the centerfold of the magazine? What is it trying to point to? It's trying to point to the collage. And is the collage singular or plural? The collage of pictures is singular. Pictures might be plural, weddings might be plural, but what is actually the centerfold? The collage was the centerfold. And the collage is a singular noun. Where is the verb? Is where singular or plural? That's a plural verb. And this sentence is therefore incorrect because the noun and the verb are not agreeing in terms of number. For the sentence to be correct, we should have used the singular verb was. Was the centerfold of the magazine would be a correct construction. So to sum up these 2 rules, if there is a verb and it's pointing at a noun, that noun and the verb should agree in terms of number. And if there is a modifier phrase, that modifier phrase has to be physically next to the word that it's referencing. There are a lot of other sub-rules that you need to know in both these concepts. There are special circumstances, there are exceptions, there are all of those. Let's at least understand the fundamentals through these questions. Here's the first question. If you have not seen these questions before, this might be a good time for you to pause the video, actually solve the question, and then come back to the explanations. If you have seen these questions, let's jump into the explanations. Alright, for this question, I'm not going to straight away tell you what the answer is. I'm going to take you through the process by which you should arrive at the answer. The first step in your process of answering any sentence correction question should always be to understand the meaning of the sentence. Without understanding the meaning of the sentence, no grammar rule can be effectively applied. Whether it be about nouns, verbs, adjectives, pronouns, tenses, modifiers, whatever it is, understand the meaning of the sentence first. We first need to know what are we trying to say in the sentence, and then we can think about how best shall we go about saying that in the sentence. Alright, so break down the sentence, understand what the meaning is that we want to convey, and then go to your answer options. So what's the meaning of the sentence? We're talking about dams, and we're saying that dams are good because they produce electricity, etc. So some advantages of having dams is given to you there. But how does a sentence start? Starts by saying while dams help us blah blah blah, which basically means we've used a while. It means you're introducing a contrast, and that's what the second half of the sentence does. Dams are not always good. They also prevent silt from flowing to the downstream lands, which clearly means that preventing silt from flowing is not a good thing. So why is silt important? Silt renews the minerals and nutrients in the land. And why is that good? Why is that needed? Because those minerals and nutrients are the ones that keep the land fertile. So dams have certain advantages, but they prevent silt from flowing into the downstream lands. And because these downstream lands are not getting silt, the minerals and nutrients in the land are not getting renewed. And those minerals and nutrients are the ones that keep the land fertile. This is ultimately the point that we want to convey. Okay, we've understood the sentence, we've broken it down. Right. What are the answer options talking about? Now, one thing that people tend to do is they tend to read each answer option completely in order to understand, in order to determine whether an answer option is correct or incorrect. While you can do that, it is probably faster for you to vertically scan through all your options, especially when you still have 5 answer options left. Vertically scanning through your answer options should be the second step after you understand what the original sentence is about. This helps you to do 2 things. 1, saves time, because you're processing more than one answer option simultaneously. Second, once you have all your rules in place, one of the difficulties that people have is identifying what rule is tested in which sentence and what you have to apply in each of the sentences. I started off this video by saying, look, we're going to be looking at modifiers and noun-verb agreement. The GMAT is not going to give you any such helpful hints. So how do I determine what rule is tested and what I should be thinking of when I'm looking at a particular question? That answer is in the answer options themselves. They are your clues. Treat them as such. Right? Look at your answer options simultaneously. If you can spot what the differences are across your answer options, that tells you, oh, this is the concept that is being tested in this particular sentence. If a phrase is in multiple places in different answer options, then that tells you, oh, modifier placement is tested in the sentence. If some answer options take a singular verb, some options take a plural verb, that tells you noun-verb agreement is tested in the sentence. Not Shweta at the beginning of the video. So look through your answer options looking for these clues, and that will tell you what rule you have to apply in each of your sentences. So don't start off by reading your answer options completely. Vertically read them looking for differences. Let's do that in this particular sentence. These are our answer options. What do we see are the differences across our answer options? Straight away noticing some of my options are starting with silt, some of them are starting with downstream lands, some are starting with the flow of silt. So how my answer option has to start seems to be a difference across my answer options. Okay, what else is the difference? Now I'm identifying all the differences in these questions, but what you can do, if you identify a difference and you know, oh, this is the rule that's tested here, you can start shortlisting your answer options as and when you identify a difference. Alright, I'm going to look at other differences here. One thing else that pops out at me, this modifier, which are essential for renewing the minerals and nutrients that make the land fertile, seem to be in multiple places. Like I have it in the middle of my underlined portion in these answer options. I have it earlier in my answer option in these 2 options. So the placement of this particular phrase seems to be a difference across my options. Anything else? Some of them are saying which are essential, some of them are saying which is essential. So that's another difference, singular, plural, are and is. Right. There are other differences, but even if you're identifying multiple differences at the beginning, once you have 2-3 differences in place, go to the process of shortlisting answer options. And that is our third and final step in answering this question. We're going to do the process of elimination. I'm going to do one difference at a time, apply one rule at a time, and see if I can eliminate answer options. If you're more comfortable with modifiers, start with that. You're more comfortable with singular plural, start with that. Start with the rules that you're always the most comfortable with, so that the process of elimination is faster and you have that much more confidence in your own ability to answer your questions. Alright? Let's look at it. The question is also here, but a part of the question is not given on this particular slide, simply so I need the space for presenting the answer options, right? The questions are in the description given at the bottom of the video. So please look at the entire question if you're in doubt. Alright, let's look at the answer options. What's the first thing that I can use to eliminate my answer options? One thing we have said is something is essential for renewing the minerals and nutrients that make the land fertile. This is a modifier. Now, what is essential for renewing the minerals and the nutrients? The silt. But if you look at the original construction, if you look at the first answer option, it's next to downstream lands. What did we discuss as a modifier rule? A modifier phrase has to be next to the word that it's referencing. The reference should not therefore be to the lands. That does not make any sense. The lands are not essential for the renewal of the minerals and the nutrients. The silt is. So you need the modifier to be placed next to the silt. And in these two constructions, the reference is not to the silt, it's referencing the downstream lands. It's next to silt here, it is next to silt here, it's next to silt here. So my modifier placement is a problem in answer options A and D. That's A as in alpha, D as in delta. So those two answer options are clearly incorrect. We are not talking about the downstream lands. Let's eliminate those two options. Alright, we're down to 3. Let's look at the difference. I quickly see that these options are starting with silt and this option is starting with downstream lands. So that's probably a decision that you can take. What is being prevented? It's not the downstream lands that are being prevented. It is the silt that is being prevented. So it makes a lot more sense for you to start the answer option with silt. That's one reason that C will not work. Here's another thing. Let me give you a parallel sentence, okay? I prepared well for the GMAT and managed my time during the test, scoring 750. If I say that, and then put say comma scoring 750, what I'm essentially saying is that because of my preparation and because of the fact that I managed my time well, I was able to score 750. A lot of times we use this comma ing construction to give a cause-effect relationship when you want to say that two events are tied together. That's the meaning that you end up conveying when you use that construction. So what's the first event here? They prevent the downstream lands, making the land fertile. The meaning of this answer option is that because they are preventing the downstream lands, they are making the land fertile, which does not make any sense whatsoever. At least if you said they prevent the downstream lands from getting silt, which makes the land infertile, that would make a lot better sense than it is. Right now, the meaning is that the prevention has increased the fertility of the land. That's clearly an incorrect answer option, and that's one more thing that we have learned right now. If I use an ing construction, a lot of times it's used to denote a cause-effect relationship, so you want to check whether that's the meaning that you're trying to convey in that particular sentence. So C is out for both these reasons. Let's eliminate it. Let's look at our remaining answer options. At this stage, when you have two options left, it might be prudent for you to read the answer options and see what they are saying and see whether they make sense. Alright. So silt, they prevent silt, which is essential for the renewal of the minerals and the nutrients that make the land fertile from flowing to the downstream lands. Alright. So this is my entire modifier. If I read without it, it says they prevent silt from flowing to the downstream lands, which makes sense. What is essential? The silt, that also makes sense. This is another mini modifier that make the land fertile. So you can ask what makes the land fertile, and it's the minerals and the nutrients, which also is next to the word that it's referencing. So everything in B seems to make sense. Let's quickly check E as well. Silt, which is essential, so this modifier is correctly placed, to renewing the minerals and nutrients and is making the land fertile from flowing to the downstream lands. Read without the modifier. They prevent silt from flowing to the downstream lands. Same base sentence, so your sentence is fine. So the difference seems to be that and is making. This is no longer a modifier now. What we have done, however, is given a list of verbs. Silt is essential and is making the land fertile. So the meaning of this answer option is that the silt does two things. One, it's essential. Two, it's making the land fertile. That does not make sense. It's not the silt that is making the land fertile. It is the minerals and the nutrients that are making the land fertile. So this answer option does not make logical sense and you can eliminate it. The right answer is B. Okay, there's another thing that you should have noticed that would also help you in eliminating answer options. When I use the to construction, when I use the word to, you will never follow it with an ing construction of the verb. For this sentence to be right, it should have also said to renew and not to renewing. That is an incorrect construction. So that's one more thing we've learned in this video. If you use the word to, you should not follow it with an ing form of the verb. It should always be followed by the simple form or what the grammar gurus call the infinitive form of the verb. I'm not using a lot of grammar terms. I'm trying not to. Like I could have very well said that making the land fertile is a present participle clause, which will not make any improvement to your ability to learn. Just know how you have to use these constructions. You don't have to worry about what these constructions are called. Not necessarily. Sometimes you need to know what's an adjective and what's a noun, but beyond that, try not to get too caught up in what these technical jargon or definitions of these grammar terms are. Alright, so anyway, we've eliminated our answer options. It's not E. The right answer for this particular question is B. A couple of things that you could have still used to eliminate answer options. Some of your options are saying are essential. Some of them are saying is essential. We did spot this earlier. Silt is what is essential. So silt is singular. So you would not have said are essential. That's one more thing you could have used. And here, in A alone, the option says makes the land fertile. What is making the land fertile? Minerals and nutrients, which is plural, and it has to be make, which is what all your other options are saying. Makes is a singular construction. So subject-verb agreement could have also been used for you to eliminate A and D. Anyways, the answer is B. Let's look at the next question. Question 2. If you have not seen this question before, this is a good time for you to pause the video, read the question, solve it, and then look at the explanations. If you have, let's jump into the explanations. Let's go for our patented method. What do we start off with? We start off by identifying the meaning of the sentence and making sure we understand it. Alright? So what is the sentence talking about? We're talking about the desert tortoise. And we know that the tortoise is on the endangered list. Okay, why is it endangered? Because it's being preyed on by ravens. And ravens are its natural predator. And what else do we know? We know that this ravens preying on desert tortoises has contributed to more than 50%, because it says more than half of the juvenile tortoise deaths in the Mojave Desert. Right? Okay, so these are the 3 bits of information that you need to convey through your answer option. Let's look at the answer options. How do we process the answer options? We start by vertically scanning through the options, looking for differences. Let's do it. Let's look at our answer options. Okay, what differences do we spot? We can straight away spot that some of the options are starting with the word ravens. Some of them are starting with the desert tortoise. What else do we have as a difference? Some of them are saying more than half of the juvenile tortoise deaths and stopping with that. Whereas some of the options are saying than any other predator or than to any other predator. There is a than construction that is added towards the end of your answer options. Any other difference across your options? Some of them are saying estimated to be the cause, and some of them are saying estimated to cause. So whether or not to be or not to be seems to be a question across your answer options as well. Alright, so these are your differences that I can quickly spot. There could be other differences. We will come to them once we start eliminating answer options. We'll come to them if necessary, if we are left with more than one option. Alright, let's jump into the process of eliminating our answer options. So let's look at the questions and the answer option as well. Okay, now how does the sentence start? It starts by saying on the endangered species list since 1989, comma, and then the sentence goes. Now this is your base sentence. So this part on the endangered species list is a description of something. So this is a modifier. So ask yourself, what's on the endangered species list? What's on the endangered species list? The desert tortoise, which means the word desert tortoise has to be right next to your modifier. And if it has to be right next to your modifier, the underlined portion has to start with desert tortoise, which means B, D, E are okay, but A and C you can eliminate because according to A and C, the ravens are on the endangered species list, which could be true, but for the purpose of our sentence does not make any sense because the ravens are the predators here and the desert tortoise is the prey. So we can go ahead, eliminate A and C. Those two options do not make any logical sense. Okay, that leaves us with B, D, E. Let's answer this. Should I have than do any other predator question? Because if I need that, then D and E don't have it. B is straight away the answer. If I don't need it, then I can eliminate B. Okay, here's what happens. This is what I call the autocorrect error, which happens when you have learned your rules in kind of like a half-baked fashion when you're not really understanding the meaning that you're having in a sentence. This is a tendency that people have. If I have a comparison, if I say more, less, greater, smarter, better, I need to follow it up with a than. So the ravens are more responsible for the deaths than any other predator should be my construction. Why do they understand the rule this way? Because we don't say it when we speak, right? We'll just say, I need more time to prepare. Sounds like a complete sentence. But what you should actually say, more time than what? Than what I have right now. So you should go to the trouble of saying, I need more time to prepare than I have on hand right now is actually the complete construction. We don't go to the trouble of saying it when we speak. But here's the thing. The autocorrect mode comes in when you're not stopping to understand the sentence at all and then you're saying, oh, I need than something else every single time I see a more. But read the sentence carefully, you already have a than. It is more than what? More than half, more than 50%. That has already been established in the sentence. You already have a than construction. We are not comparing ravens with other predators. That's not the intent of our sentence. The intent of our sentence is to say that the death caused by ravens constitutes more than 50%. That's it. It's not a comparison with other predators. So having than do any other predator in the sentence makes no logical sense whatsoever. So one more point that we are getting established through the sentence, don't go into the autocorrect mode when you are completing your comparisons. Understand the sentence, understand what is being compared, understand whether you're making a comparison at all or giving a range of numbers, and then accordingly determine what you should have or what you should not have in the sentence. Alright, so B we can go ahead and eliminate in this particular sentence. That leaves us with D and E. Now is a good time for you to read your answer options completely and see whether they make sense. Let's read D. The desert tortoise is preyed on by ravens. Makes sense so far. Its natural predator, estimated to cause more than half of the juvenile tortoise deaths. Okay, its natural predator is another modifier in the sentence. What's the natural predator? The ravens. So it's next to the word it's describing. I don't see a problem with D. The desert tortoise is naturally preyed on by ravens, which are estimated to be the cause of more than half of the juvenile tortoise deaths. The ravens are estimated is what you are saying. Seems to make logical sense, but there are a couple of problems here. One, you have said naturally preyed on. Naturally is referencing how they are preyed on by ravens. Tell me this. Are there any other ways the ravens can prey on the desert tortoise? Can they artificially prey on the desert tortoise? They can't, right? If they're preyed on, they preyed on. There's no naturally, artificially, or any other qualifier that makes sense here. If I say naturally preyed on, it's different from saying the ravens are the natural predator. When I say it's the natural predator, humans, for example, are not the natural predator of the desert tortoise because we're logically not on the food chain. But we might prey on them because we need the shell. So we're not their natural predator. We are not the ones who eat the desert tortoise. That's not where we stand in the food chain. That's what it means when you say the ravens are the natural predator of the desert tortoise. By nature, they were intended to be enemies. But if you say they are naturally preyed, then you're describing how the process of preying happens, and you're trying to say that this is how they were preyed, which does not make any sense whatsoever. It's important for you to understand the meaning of not just the original sentence, but also the meaning of the answer options and what they are trying to convey. So this option does not make any sense. E is not your answer. The right answer for this question is D delta. The next question, question number 3. Let's look at the question. Again, as I've been saying through the video, and as I will continue to say so for any of the questions we're discussing, pause the video, solve it on your own, determine whether you have arrived at the right answer after that. Let's look at the explanations if you have already solved the question. So what's our first step? We're going to understand the sentence. Let's understand the meaning of the sentence. What are we talking about? We're talking about a time period when children were taught to read using simple and boring primers. Okay? So what happened? Because the children were being taught to read using boring primers, there was lots of criticism about it. And so what did they decide to do because there was a criticism? They decided that a book called The Cat in the Hat should be sanctioned. So it's a story that people asked someone to write, right? We don't know who. We don't know who asked, who wrote. Nothing is given in the sentence. We just know that The Cat in the Hat was commissioned. All right? And what do we know about The Cat in the Hat? It's a story about a tall cat and 2 bored children. And we also know that it used clever rhymes and interesting plot twists, which is probably reasonably important information here because we're trying to contrast The Cat in the Hat that was clever, that was interesting, with the simple and boring primers that were used till then. So they wanted a book which was different from the books that were used to teach children to read at that point in time. And so The Cat in the Hat was commissioned. This is the meaning of the sentence. Let's look at our answer options. Vertically scanning through the options, we're looking for differences across the options. Alright, so what do we see? We see that some of the options are saying were commissioned and some of the options are saying was commissioned. So singular plural seems to be a difference across our answer options. What else do we see? How the word employed is being used. Some of them are saying comma employing. Someone is saying and employing, and one says and employed, another says that employed. You also notice where it is in the sentence. Is it after commission? Is it after children? The construction of the word employed is different. The placement of this construction, the placement in the sentence is also different. So there are 2 things to watch out for here. Placement of this phrase and how you are beginning that phrase. So that's another difference across your options. Anything else? Your options are either ending with in response to, in A and C, due to, in D and E, and as a response to, in B. These are your differences across your options. Okay, so now that we know what the differences are, let's see which of those differences can be used in order to shortlist our answer options. So we're moving on to the process of elimination, one difference at a time. We're going to be looking at the questions. Part of the sentence in the question is missing because I don't have the space for it, but you can look at the entire question in the description so that you can keep track of our discussion. Okay, now what was commissioned? What are we talking about? The Cat in the Hat was commissioned. The Cat in the Hat is the name of one story, right? How many books? 1. So is it singular or plural? It is singular. If it's singular, should I say were commissioned or was commissioned? I need to be saying was commissioned because was is a singular verb, where is the plural verb, noun verb agreement. We're talking about one book, so the verb should also be singular. So let's eliminate the options that are using a plural construction. So were commissioned in A and were commissioned again in E are incorrect. You can eliminate those 2 answer options. Alright, so they're gone. You still have B, C, D. Let's look at what are the differences across these answer options. Now, D says, that employed clever rhymes and interesting plot twist was commissioned due to, and the other two are saying in response or as a response. So response is the word used in B and C, due to is the word that is used in D. How do I use the word due to? Due to is used to give a cause-effect relationship. Now, there is a lot of discussion about when you should use a due to, when you should use a because, and so on and so forth. One good way for you to check whether due to is appropriate in a particular sentence is to substitute with the words caused by. Due to and caused by are considered synonymous constructions. So, where we have used due to, substitute with caused by and see whether that makes sense in the sentence. If I substitute here, my sentence would read, was commissioned caused by. Commissioned caused, two verbs back to back, and they're not a list. That does not seem to make any sense to me. So caused by will not fit here. If caused by doesn't fit, due to will also not fit, and you can eliminate that. So that's the rule we have learned. If you are using due to and you want to make sure that's right, substitute with caused by and check whether that sentence makes sense. D is not the right answer. Let's eliminate it. We're down to B and C. Let's read them and see what the differences are. B says, was commissioned and employed clever rhymes and interesting plot twists as a response to. And C says, employing clever rhymes and interesting plot twists was commissioned in response to. Alright, in response to as a response to is not really a decision-making factor. Don't worry too much about it. What is the decision-making factor is the usage of commissioned and employed in your sentences. Now, in this sentence, was commissioned and employed is a list. I put them two together, I've used an and. Right? So, the commissioning was done as a response. The employing of clever names was done as a response is what you're saying in B. How did we respond rather to the widespread criticism? By getting this book done. That's it. The commissioning was a response to the criticism, but the employment of clever rhymes and interesting plot twists is simply a feature of the book. It is not really something that was done as a response to the criticism. The criticism was about simple and boring primers, so we wanted a book that had interesting plot twist and was clever. We didn't necessarily ask for rhymes or whatever. We just said, let's not keep it simple and boring. Let's try something interesting. And so a book was commissioned that had these, right? So the commissioning of the book was the response, and you wanted these features in the book. When I say employing clever rhymes and interesting plot twists, that's being a modifier, and that is therefore referencing the story. A story that was employing these rhymes and plot twists was commissioned in response to is what you are saying, and that makes a lot more sense. So, what is the right answer here? Your right answer here would be C, because you don't want commissioned and employed as a list of items, because both those actions were not a response to the widespread criticism. So, eliminate B. The right answer for this question is C.